Hi, I'm Heather McLean and I'm with the Alliance Against the Northern Pass, and today we are going to be interviewing Jack Savage. He's the Vice President of Communications with the Society for the Protection of the New Hampshire Forests, and they are putting in a new bid to stop the Northern Pass, and he's going to tell us all about it today. How you doing, Jack?
I'm good, thanks for having me.
No problem.
Yeah, we announced earlier this week that we were going to be initiating a Trees Not Towers campaign that constitutes a blocking action against Northern Pass's intended route through Coos County. This is important because we think by stopping them there we can protect the entire 180-mile proposed corridor from the Canadian border down through Groveton and Franklin and on to Deerfield. And our priority is that there are any number of existing conserved lands all along that route, including our own Washburn Family Forest, our Rocks Estate, dozens of other protected properties along the way that would be directly impacted by the more than 1,100 towers across 180 miles of proposed power line. And so we have a long history of protecting New Hampshire's scenic landscape and forested landscape, and this is just one more step in our endeavor to maintain that protection. Included in that 180 miles is 10 miles of White Mountain National Forest, as I think you know. And we were founded back in 1901 in large part to help create the White Mountain National Forest. And the idea that we would expand the right-of-way and add more towers that are much higher through that 10 miles is certainly not something that we think anybody should consider. And so this is all part of that action to compel Hydro-Quebec, Canada's mega utility, and Northern Utilities, which is the parent company of public service in New Hampshire, to sit down and think about other viable alternatives to doing that. From the Forest Society's perspective, there may well be a way to bring power from Canada to southern New England. It's not about bringing New Hampshire power to New Hampshire. This is about bringing power to southern New England. And there may be a way to do that, but this is not the way to do it. This is the cheap and easy way to do it, and they need to look at more viable, less damaging alternatives. So let me show you the map and give you an idea of what we're doing.
Okay, well let's just go through this airplane ride, and George is going to focus on the map. Hopefully they're not trying to go along the Northern Pass route with their helicopters, but I think that was an airplane.
All right, so you can see here, this is northern New Hampshire. This is downtown Colebrook here. This is Stewartstown, Clarksville, Pittsburgh. This is the Balsams, and we protected 5,600 acres with help from people like yourself and many others last winter. And this is a parcel right here. You'll see these, this parcel in purple or pink that Northern Pass acquired last year in hopes of pushing through the Balsams landscape. But thanks to more than 1,700 donors last December and January, we protected this and blocked them from going through. We're now working in them on blocking another action. They've moved and are attempting to come through to the east of the Balsams, just north of that area. So you can see here, this up here in Pittsburgh, up by Hall Stream, is where they hope to come across the border, and they've applied for a presidential permit. That process is now on hold. And they've been saying that they're going to be announcing a route, and they've been continually delaying when they would announce that route. Well, there's nothing really to announce. We know what the route will be. Coming in through Pittsburgh, attempting to cross the Route 3 and the Connecticut River, coming across Clarksville like this, coming down into Stewartstown, and across this way. And so all of these landowners would be affected. And by punching through here, they would presumably hope to come down through lands on the east side of the Balsams and the east side of the state's Nash Stream Forest and connect in with the Coos Loop, which is a PSNH right-of-way that cuts back through to Lost Nation over in Grovetown.
So have they bought any lands through here yet?
We can only presume that that's their intent, because they did buy a piece of land down near the Coos Loop, a smaller piece, and so one can only presume, knowing that they acquired this property here, that they intend to connect down there. I don't know the status of this over here.
Okay.
However, we're focusing our blocking actions up here in Stewartstown and Columbia. First, I wanted to make a point about our Washburn Family Forest in Clarksville, and an area that they are not going to be able to get through. So if I could change maps here a little bit. Where's this other map?
Got it. Map number 2.
Right, so this is a close-up of that area from Canada where they hope to come through, the whole stream area, and they've made arrangements to acquire property that would lead them up to near the Upper Connecticut River and Route 3. This green is our Washburn Family Forest, and they've bought additional lands just south of that. However, we own a section of land down here along the river. We own the riverfront. And in order to cross over that, they would have to get a right-of-way from us, and we have no intention of giving them that right-of-way. That's not the only way you can come in from Canada. However, in terms of the acquisitions they've made here, we don't see them as being a viable way for them to come through.
I'm surprised they would even try that. But I guess they'll try anything.
Right. So I'll now move to the next stage of our blocking actions, if you will. Here in Stewartstown, again, this is Clarksville, and they've made these purple properties are those that they've acquired in fee or acquired a rights-of-way through, and then blank areas we're not sure. The yellow areas are the landowners with whom we've come to an agreement. We have signed purchase and sale agreements to put conservation easements on those properties that would prevent towers and power lines, above ground or underground, I should say. One point I would point here, this area here is the Connecticut Lakes headwaters, and these come to a point. These is conserved lands. These are privately owned, but there was a forest legacy easement that's held by the state that was put on it back in 2003. They cannot put any commercial development on these lands. Consequently, they are unable to cross over through here. You cannot put a 150-foot right-of-way or string of wire across this point. So they are blocked here. But in case that they would find a way in order to do that, we don't own the land, nor do we hold the easement. We have come to an agreement with Lynn Placey to put an easement on these 2 parcels that she owns in order to prevent them from coming to this parcel that they can use and this parcel that they can use. More than that, and looking ahead, we would imagine that they might want to try to come around this in order to connect. In order to block them from doing that, we have come to an agreement with the McAllister family to put a conservation easement on 967 acres represented by this block here. This is absolutely gorgeous landscape that you can see for miles. And you walk up to the height of land, you can see down to the Presidentials on a clear day. You can see east to Vermont, you can see west over to the Balsams over here. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's a working dairy farm, it's a certified tree farm, they do some maple sugaring. This is a historic New Hampshire working landscape. There's a major snowmobile trail that comes up through there on its way to Coleman State Park and on to Pittsburgh. There's also part of the Coos hiking trail that's on there. And so this is one of those rare parcels. You see how you can see the detail in this map, how fragmented this landscape is. There's been a lot of subdivision, but this is now in one ownership, and so it's important from a conservation standpoint. Furthermore, we've come to agreement with Green Acre Woodlands to put a conservation easement on 500 acres adjacent to McAllister Farm. This is again this is North Hill, and it's a beautiful viewscape looking. It's a 360-degree view up there. It's just astounding. 4 points of the compass you can see. About 100 acres is kept open for wildlife habitat. It's good game bird habitat. The conservation easement will allow for hunting and other public recreational access, and it would be permanently protected from power lines or towers. And that connects with this green parcel, which is already. All right, this closer up map shows the blocking action that we're taking against Northern Pass by conserving 4 parcels constituting more than 1,500 acres. It's actually close to 1,800 acres that would prevent the erection of towers or power lines across any of those lands. You can see the purple parcels here indicate the path that they intend to take. These are parcels that they either own outright or have acquired a right-of-way across. However, there's holes in those, and you can see some of those holes here. I'd like to point out right in here, they have an issue that will not allow them to cross through this section here. These green lands are part of the Connecticut Lakes headwaters. They're privately owned with a forest legacy easement that's held by the state that would prohibit commercial development, and they cannot cross through this corner here in order to get further east. But in the event, since we do not own that land, nor do we hold the easement, in the event they were to find a way through there, we've entered into agreement with Lynn Placey to put a permanent conservation easement on her land here. This is about 100 acres total that would prohibit them from connecting the dots on their intended route. Furthermore, in anticipation of them attempting to go around that section, we've entered into an agreement with the McAllister family that owns 967 acres indicated by this yellow block here. This is absolutely gorgeous land. You walk up to the height of land, you can see down to the Presidentials on a clear day, over to Vermont, over to the Balsams over here. It's a certified tree farm, it's a working dairy farm. They do a little bit of maple sugaring. It's just classic, scenic, working New Hampshire landscape. And it's not the kind of place that anybody should be erecting power lines and towers. In order to further the block, we've entered into agreement with Green Acre Woodlands on this 500-acre parcel over here. And once again, this is incredibly scenic property. You walk up the height of land, there's about 100 acres cleared up on North Hill, and you get absolutely 360-degree views. And once again, it's not the kind of place where we want to put power lines and towers. That easement will guarantee public access for traditional uses such as hunting, its excellent game bird habitat, and so forth. Just to the west of Green Acres is another parcel that's already conserved that would prohibit commercial development as well. So we believe that by putting these easements in place, we would effectively block them from making use of what is clearly their intended route.
Wow, yeah, that's like a big.
Right. I'll show you one. I'll show you one other map that shows a little bit more of the fourth parcel that we're talking about. Again, we were talking about this area right here. Here's the McAllister farm. Here's Green Acre Woodlands, we believe that if we're successful in raising the $2.5 million to complete the conservation easements on these parcels, we'll be able to stop them from making use of this. And one can then project forward. You see that there's another parcel down here that they've acquired, and so they're obviously looking ahead to the possibility of coming down through below the balsams, south of the balsams and north of Nass Stream Forest. And in order to prevent that, we've come to an agreement with the Lewis family on 300 acres that's has some pretty high conservation values as well. There's about a mile worth of frontage on Roaring Brook, which feeds the Mohawk River, which ends up over in the upper Connecticut. So from a water quality standpoint, that's important too. It also connects the landscape between the protected landscape between the balsams and the Nass Stream Forest. And so there's 5 parcels, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 landowners, and these are perpetual easements. One of the things that we're particularly concerned about is that as they've sought to acquire fee ownerships up here and spent $15 million, a lot of money, paying vast amounts more than the market value of this land, that we have to start thinking ahead about why they might be doing that. For those of you who have been to the landscape outside of Montreal, where Hydro-Quebec has just put these huge industrialized corridors with multiple lines and multiple towers.
Unbelievable.
And knowing that Hydro-Quebec's plan involves exporting up to 4 times as much power as Northern Pass represents, right? So Northern Pass represents 1,200 megawatts, and Hydro-Quebec is very clear about they want to export 5,000 megawatts of power over ensuing decades to New Hampshire. But what's really going on here is the creation of another one of those industrialized corridors.
That's right.
Where there would be multiple towers and multiple lines to export all of that power. This is not something we want to have happen to New Hampshire.
I agree.
And so I think that's our great fear, and that's why we need to stop them here and stop them now by putting these conservation easements in place. Furthermore, we're continuing to talk to other landowners, so as we understand where they might attempt to go further and what landowners would be interested in talking with us about conserving more land, we're continuing to have those conversations.
Well, that is excellent information, and I have like 2 more questions
Sure.
for you. Okay, so one of them is the whole issue with big hydro power. Everybody's using it's renewable, we want it, it's great. Can you share some insights on that to really educate people on what big hydro really means for our environment?
Yeah, the Forest Society hasn't gotten into that issue as much, to be honest. I think the question, here's the question, it's being purported and claimed to be green power.
Right.
The idea being that somehow by using this power we would lower the amount of carbon emissions. We would reduce the amount of fossil fuels. They're being used to generate electricity here in New Hampshire. And at this point, that's essentially a false claim. There's no guarantee that by bringing this project online, we would reduce fossil fuels. In fact, the New England Power Generators Association conducted a study in which their analysis showed that in order for Hydro-Quebec to provide 100% hydropower to New England, they would have to shift hydropower they're currently sending to Ontario to New England. And what Ontario would then do is use natural gas.
Okay.
Well, these days we have a natural gas capacity here in New England, and natural gas is an all-time low. That creates a problem for the market in terms of whether hydro can be made available at a lower cost. If it's not, then gas is going to continue to be used, in which case there's just no savings whatsoever.
Okay.
Meanwhile, you look at SPNHF, which is a major player in this, and they have the Bow coal-fired power plant, and that's one of the dirtiest producers of electricity out there. And so if we really wanted to reduce carbon emissions in New Hampshire, we'd take the Bow power plant offline. And that's not being proposed as an option at all. This project is not about green energy, it's about business competition. It's about Hydro-Quebec wanting to take their power, sell it to their subsidiary on a private, exclusive line through New Hampshire in order to compete in the market in New England.
I think you did a great job answering that question, and I have one more. What do you say when they have, every newspaper article I've read so far has had, I think it's Martin Murray coming back and saying, oh, this is just a ploy to fundraise for the Society for Protecting the Forests. I mean, they just like to make everybody sound so trivial and unimportant.
Well, we have a long history of doing land protection projects, and this is the way we do it. We go out and we ask the community to step forward, and we help them understand the important values that this land represents. And we've done it recently with the Black Mountain Project up in Warner and Sutton. We've done it with the Ashwellet River Headwaters Project over in Leominster. We've done it recently with adding 400 acres to the conserved area surrounding Mount Monadnock, in which we go out and ask people to donate money in order for us to protect those lands. This is no different than that. There happens to be a direct and immediate threat in Northern Pass that wants to commercialize these particular lands. But in the end, the way we do it is to solicit support for that. If people are willing to give, if they think this is important, they will. It'll be an interesting outcome. We'll see over the next several months. We have until October 31st to raise $2.5 million in order to protect about 1,800 acres that would help block Northern Pass. That's the pitch.
Yeah, and I think it's a worthy cause, and the fact that $1 billion+ company is saying something as trivial as that shows that they must be threatened. Thank you, Jack.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.